Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Putt.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today?
Good.
How you doing today? Welcome
Morning,
to First
Earthlings.
Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things I'm talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poet. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. He'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. He'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First Contact
the truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand the truth.
Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Today, Thursday, the 2nd of April 2015. Sun sign in Aries, moon sign in Virgo. That is up until 11:12 a.m. when it will go void, of course. And then the next time it will be in the next sign will be 2:07 a.m. Pacific time. Will move into Libra. So right now we've got an earth sign and the unconscious mind, the hermit, wanting to hold the light up for others to see what has been discovered. We have Aries, which is wanting to put things in order. Over the course of the night, Virgo was in a opposition with the healer, the wounded part of ourselves. Also, Virgo was in trine with Venus, all about love and imagination. Not too long ago, about 40 minutes ago, Mercury entered into a trine with Saturn. So Mercury is about communication, Saturn is about focus, discipline. So we're disciplining our communication. And then, of course, we enter the void of course phase, 11 o'clock this morning, in which case things are just kind of stationary in that Virgo phase as we just await the moon change into Libra. And then, of course, we have the Sun and Jupiter just shortly after noon, 12:20 p.m. Pacific time. We have them in trine. So Aries is having an expansion, expanding out what it is we know, how we organize, prepare for things, our leadership qualities. All the things of Aries get expanded because their sun sign here is expanded. If we go look at the Planet Watcher, which is the wheel, we can get a good grasp of additionally how things are. And again, just the way in which it shows all these aspects of when they occurred, when they are coming up. So it shows this one of Sun and Jupiter I just talked about. It says in 3 hours. This one here, the moon conjunct, will be in 1.9 days. So it's kind of cool. You can go and follow along, see where we're going, where we've been, how long ago it was that we had these different aspects. All right. 13 Nisan on the Jewish calendar, year 5775. Daily thought is escape. On our own, we cannot reach higher than our own fingertips lifted high. We cannot break out of our own skin. We cannot lift ourselves up by pulling out our own hair. All of our achievements are tied to our own ego. All that we may comprehend is defined by our own subjective perception. We are prisoners by virtue of existence. So God threw us a rope. He gave us tasks to fulfill that are beyond our grasp, thoughts to fathom that take us outside of the hollow of our subjective universe. All that is needed is our willingness to leave ourselves. We are prisoners, but we sit on the keys. That's very profound. And the waxing moon, 97% of the way full. Saturday, we will be there. Full moon, eclipse, blood moon coming up. Solar wind 44 is 0.8 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index currently in the 2 to 3 range. Big coronal hole in the bottom is kind of spread out. This one across the middle is, well, it seems to still be getting larger. We have this other one right here. So expect solar wind to be hitting us from the coronal holes. Tells us around the 3rd or the 4th, which is coming up, the weekend. M-class flare possibilities hanging at 25, X-class at 5. Geomagnetic storm activity is rising slowly. It's going from 25 to 35 in the mid-latitudes. In the higher latitudes, it's jumping up only about 15 to 20. We get 20, 25, 10 to 25 in the severe area in the high latitudes. So we are starting to make some movement in the sun. Okay, here's a little notification about the eclipse on Saturday morning. Sky watchers in the USA can see a brief but beautiful total eclipse of the moon. The event will be visible from Mexico, Western Canada, and across the entire Pacific Ocean, Australia, Indonesia, and elsewhere. Alright, we'll talk more about that tomorrow so you know exactly what time to deal with. And the sky tonight. This is look above Venus. At nightfall, the Pleiades star cluster. Size of your fingertip at arm's length. It's 8 degrees above Venus this evening. It will pass Venus by less than 3 degrees on April 10th through the 12th. Alright, and here's our moon. Virgo off to the left. Alright, and that is our cosmic weather, so that's what we're dealing with today. Plan accordingly as you go out and about. So basically an overview. We got the Aries, the fire, setting things in order, getting our house in order, so to speak. And we have Virgo, which is wanting to assist that by shining the light high. So looking not only how to set things in order, but set things in order and also be able to help others as well. Share with others. So a lot of stuff going on. Good stuff. That is our cosmic weather, and that brings us to UFO news up next.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. So the first sighting here comes from San Antonio. Multiple UFO orbs over San Antonio, March 28th. This is some cool UFO hunting in daytime with an infrared lens over his camcorder. Also know I have such a lens, and when I see an airplane, I can see its wings, windows, and all detail. So no, infrared lenses won't take that much detail from an object. These orbs are not planes. So the eyewitness states multiple 2015 UFOs were captured traveling over San Antonio, Texas. This day I managed to capture some UFO orbs travel in high altitude. On this day you'll clearly see UFOs and their flight patterns with some reference points such as rooftops, treetops. Videos were filmed over the southeast side of San Antonio, Texas. Consists of glowing orbs of energy as seen to be traveling on its own power, not blown by the wind. These objects are clearly not aircraft, weather balloon, satellites. Alright, very cool. Alright, links available so you can check that out. Video taken in Delhi, India. This is the 30th. This is 2 objects linked flying very fast over the sky over Delhi. Filmed on Monday, the 30th. Okay, they are moving pretty fast, aren't they? The video itself is 34 seconds in length. And that is a pretty good moving object up there. Alright, from there, radio bursts from space have intelligent design. Is it extraterrestrials? Well, let's find out what it says. Mysterious radio wave flashes from far outside the galaxy are proving tough for astronomers to explain. Is it pulsars, a spy satellite, or an alien message? Bursts of radio waves flashing across the sky seem to follow a mathematical pattern. If the pattern is real, either some strange celestial physics is going on, or the bursts are artificial, produced by human or alien technology. Telescopes have been picking up so-called fast radio bursts, otherwise known as FRBs, since 2001. They last just a few milliseconds and erupt with about as much energy as the sun releases in a month. 10 have been detected so far, most recently in 2014 when the Parkes telescope in North-South Wales, Australia, caught a burst of action for the first time. The others were found by sifting through data after the burst had arrived at Earth. No one knows what causes them, but the brevity of the burst means their source has to be small, hundreds of kilometers across at most, so they can't be from ordinary stars. They seem to be coming from far outside the galaxy. The weird part is that they all fit into a pattern that doesn't match what we know about cosmic physics. Okay. It says to calculate how far bursts have come, astronomers use a concept called the dispersion method. Each burst covers a range of radio frequencies, as if the whole FM band were playing the same song. But electrons in space scatter and delay the radiation, so that higher frequency waves make it across space faster than lower frequency waves. The more space the signal crosses, the bigger the difference, or the dispersion measure, between the arrival time of the high and the low frequencies and the further the signal has traveled. Michael Hipke of the Institute of Data Analysis in Neukirchen, Wien, Germany, and John Learned of the University of Hawaii in Manoa found that all 10 burst dispersion measures are multiplied of a single number, 187.5. This neat lineup, if taken at face value, would imply that 5 sources for the burst, all at regularly spaced distances from Earth, billions of light years away. A more likely explanation, Hipke and Learned say, is that the FRBs all come from somewhere much closer to home, from a group of objects within the Milky Way that naturally emit shorter frequency radio waves after high frequency ones with a delay that is a multiple of 187.5. They claim that there is 5 in 10,000 probability that the lineup is a coincidence. If the pattern is real, it is very real, very hard to explain. The cosmic objects might be some natural but unknown process, produce dispersions in regular steps. Small dense remnant stars called pulsars are known to emit bursts of radio waves, though not in regular arrangements with as much power as the FRBs, but maybe superdense stars are mathematical oddities because of the underlying physics we don't understand. It is also possible that telescopes are picking up evidence of human technology, like an unmapped spy satellite masquerading as signals from deep space. The most tantalizing possibility is that the source of the burst might be who, not a what. If none of the natural explanations pan out, their paper concludes, an artificial source, human or non-human, must be considered. It says the beacon from Extraterrestrials has always been on the list of weird possible origins for these bursts. These have been intriguing as an engineered signal or evidence of extraterrestrial technology since the first was discovered, says Jill Tarter, former director of the SETI Institute in California. I'm intrigued. Stay tuned. All right, there's a lot more to the article, but definitely interesting indeed. All right, let's move on. This one here is gubernatorial candidate wants Puerto Rico to become the UFO capital of the world. Okay, it says forget Roswell. Gubernatorial candidate wants Puerto Rico to have Disney World for UFO fanatics. Popular ufologist Reinaldo Rios has announced his independent run for the governorship of Puerto Rico on a platform of making the island a world center for paranormal tourism. What I want is to create a Disney World of the infinite space we live in. Many tourists would come here and make investments, Rios said in an interview with F. The candidate, who teaches first grade at the school in southern town of Yaco, has won popularity on the island for activities related to supposed sightings of apparitions, UFOs, and extraterrestrials. He even organized a gargoyle hunt. I've been a philanthropic person and never made money out of the paranormal theme, I would be making those connections for the good of the country, for Puerto Rico to become a center of paranormal tourism. I believe in extraterrestrials' life, and as human beings, we would ally ourselves with creatures of the universe to improve our educational system, and really, who knows, and to really know that we're not alone in the universe. Rio said that his objectives includes eradicating poverty and eliminating crime on the island. Rios' name gained fame back in 1978 when he belonged to a group called the Universe Station, a club for Puerto Ricans who claimed to have been contacted by extraterrestrial beings. Since then, he has worked at building a center for studying UFOs in the southern municipality of Lajas, which even has landing strips for alien spacecraft. In 1993, he began to organize monthly UFO camps to entice experts and curiosity seekers from Puerto Rico and elsewhere to take part in the public vigils to capture sightings in phones and videos. On one occasion, in December 2010, he organized a gargoyle hunt in the old sugar mill in Guanica on the southwest coast of Puerto Rico, a project with which he planned to confirm the existence of supposed mutant that attacked animals in the area. I have great friendships with people in the paranormal movement who could come to invest in Puerto Rico. Our extraterrestrial embassy would have all international sites trained on us, he said during an interview with F. Right, and one last story. This is about Rendlesham Forest and Nick Pope. It says Rendlesham Forest, a bombshell. A bombshell revelation about the Rendlesham Forest incident has just been made. The latest news has profound implications, not just for our understanding of what happened in Rendlesham, but for ufology as a whole. These people following recent developments in the case will recall that a key issue is John Burroughs and Jim Penniston's struggle to obtain their military medical records from the Department of Veteran Affairs. This was due to concerns that various health problems they have had were associated with their encounters in Rendlesham Forest. Intriguingly, these medical records were lodged in the VA's classified records section. Senator John Kyle was involved in the case and was a senator, as was Senator John McCain, who now chairs the Senate Committee on Armed Services. 6 former congressional representatives even wrote to the President of the United States about the issue. Clearly, discussions about the Rendlesham Forest incident and the effect it had on key witness John Burroughs and Jim Penniston went right to the very top. Ironically, if the British government that perhaps inadvertently provided the smoking gun, in 2006 the Ministry of Defense declassified parts of the intelligence study on UFOs, codenamed Project Codine, and classified secret UK eyes only. I had been involved in the work that led to the setting up of the study, but wasn't the final report's anonymous author, as been claimed. Parts of the document are still highly classified and extremely sensitive, and are being withheld to this day, along with many of the report's working papers, many of which were deliberately placed outside the scope of the Freedom of Information Act by using a defense contractor to undertake the work. However, one statement in the final report, perhaps missed by the censor's pen, read as follows. The well-reported Rendlesham Forest Bentwaters event is an example, or it might be postulated that several observers were probably exposed to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, radiation for longer than normal UAP sighting periods. After years of official denial and obfuscation, John Burroughs and Jim Penniston had been entirely vindicated. The MOD was effectively saying, yes, this was real, and yes, that you were irradiated. Armed with this, John and Jim's crusading attorney, Pat Frascoga, and Senator McCain had enough of a smoking gun to re-engage with the VA, and here's the bombshell development. The VA just settled with John Burroughs in full. Let there be no doubt here. Settlement of this claim should be seen for what it is, a tacit U.S. government acknowledgement that what happened was real and harmful. Add that to the Project Codine quote, and you can see that both the British and the American governments have now effectively confirmed the reality of the Rendlesham Forest incident. It's not disclosure in the sense that the UFO community envisaged with U.S. President addressing the nation, my fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone, but it's the best you'll get. It's confirmation. Speaking about the development, John Burroughs quoted as follows. In January 2015, after years of exhausting efforts, the VA settled in full with me. I needed someone to champion my cause, someone not afraid to put themselves to risk to help me. I was lucky I found two champions for my causes, my attorney Pat Frasconga and Senator John McCain and his staff. Through their efforts, I received life-saving heart surgery to replace a badly shredded anterior mitral valve caused by the UAP radiation, and a settlement from the DoD and VA admitting that I was injured in the line of duty in December of 1980. Intriguingly, despite the settlement, parts of John's military medical records file relating to the time that he served does remain classified. The bombshell revelation comes as the book that I co-wrote with John Burroughs and Jim Penniston, Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, is published as a paperback, having been out in hardback for a year. The hardback achieved bestseller status, not least due to its serialization of the Daily Mail, one of the UK's most popular national daily newspapers. Now its availability as a paperback should ensure that it reaches an even wider audience. Okay, there's a lot more to the article. I'm going to leave that on, but very interesting. See, disclosure does happen out there, but it's not the big D, as was described, that people want. It happens in subtler ways, and the people that are paying attention, you already know that UFOs have been disclosed. All we have to do is pay attention to the words that are being spoken, read between the lines at times, and we see. We know. They're just not making a big public admission. So those with ears hear, those with eyes see, and the rest, well, they just run around wondering what there is to hear and to see. That's about it. All right, I'm jumping away. I'll be back. We shall continue on. Stay tuned.
Come into our circle, Great Spirit. Fill our souls with peace.
Continuing on. So yesterday I brought forth the information on Enki and Enlil. Today I'm going to follow along with the same line of thinking, and we're going to go to the Enuma Elish, which is the epic of creation, the Babylonian mythology. And then we're going to do some comparisons with that. So let's start off right here. The Enuma Elish, epic of creation. The Babylonian epic of creation, Enuma Elish, is written on 7 tablets, each between 115 and 170 lines long. It supposedly was written no later than the reign of Nebuchadnezzar in the 12th century BC, but there is also little doubt that the story was written much earlier during the time of the Sumerians. Drawing some new light on the ancients, Henry Layard found within the ruins of the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh texts that were not unlike the Genesis creation of the Bible. George Smith first published these texts in 1876 under the title The Chaldean Genesis, Akkadian text written in the old Babylonian dialect. The Babylonian god finished his work within the span of 6 tablets of stone. The last, 7th stone, exalted the handiwork and the greatness of the deity's work. Thus, the comparison must be made to the 7 days of creation found in the Bible, borrowed its theme from the Babylonians, and them from the Sumerians. Okay, so this is an important part we're going to look at momentarily, but it's saying we've got 7 tablets here, and if we were to relate them to the first day, second day, third day, fourth, fifth, sixth, and 7th day God rested, everything seems to fit within the context of this story, that it matches the story in Genesis. Alright, let me jump over here. It says that does the Genesis creation account come from the Babylonian Enuma Elish? The Enuma Elish is a Babylonian creation myth that is named after its opening words, "when on high." It was discovered in the ancient royal library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which is current-day Mosul, Iraq, and was discovered in 1849. George Smith translated the text and related his work in 1876 in the book The Chaldean Account of Genesis. In an article entitled "Why Does the Universe Look So Old?", Dr. Al Mohler, president of Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, counted the Enuma Elish among the 4 great challenges to the traditional reading of Genesis. He writes, as scholars begin to study these documents, some begin to see Genesis as just one more Near Eastern creation story. Needless to say, the ancient myth has been a catalyst for much skepticism regarding the creation account in Genesis. It seems that the discovery and research of the Enuma Elish has brought about at least 2 major claims against the Genesis account of creation. First, because the Enuma Elish and Genesis creation accounts have many similarities, it is argued that Moses must have used the Enuma Elish as a source for his own creation account. Second, because the Enuma Elish exists as a Near Eastern creation myth, along with a handful of others, it is argued that Genesis, being a Near Eastern creation account, must also be a myth. Both objections are best answered by detailing the vast differences between the 2 accounts, and understanding the nature of Genesis is far different than from any ancient Near Eastern myth. Professor Kirk Spencer from the Criswell College in Dallas, Texas, gives a list of similarities between the Enuma Elish and Genesis creation account in this manuscript entitled Ancient of Days and Orientation in the Ancient World. Alright, so here we have 7 similarities. 1. The Enuma Elish begins with "when on high." Genesis begins with "in the beginning." The Enuma Elish shows a connection between giving of names and existence. In Genesis, the names of objects is important. Both Enuma Elish and Genesis imply primeval chaos in the beginning, that is, if you interpret darkness and emptiness as chaos. In both, water is divided into upper waters and lower waters. Enuma Elish is recorded on 7 tablets, and Genesis creation is completed in 7 days. In the Enuma Elish, man is created in the 6th tablet, and Genesis, man is created on the 6th day. In Genesis 1:2, the word translated deep is the Hebrew word tehom. Some scholars equate it with the Babylonian goddess Tiamat. Etymology: both words probably are derived from a root originally meaning ocean or deep, yet it is clear that among the Hebrews the root never took on the mythological connotation that it did among the Babylonians. As stated earlier, many biblical scholars have concluded that the similarities between the Enuma Elish and Genesis creation account show that Moses must have borrowed his information from the ancient Babylonian myth. It is important, however, to mention the differences. The list is also derived from Professor Kurt Spencer's aforementioned manuscript. Okay, so Genesis is monotheistic, while Enuma Elish is clearly polytheistic. Enuma Elish is clearly mythological, but Genesis is not only non-mythological but anti-mythical. It is a polemic against pagan mythology. Genesis makes clear that the things mankind worships as gods are little more than the creations of the one God. In the Enuma Elish, as almost all of the Near Eastern creation myths, creation is accomplished through conflict and warfare with lots of noise. In the Genesis account, however, we find the profound series of peace and quiet. The opposite of warfare and conflict can be seen in the instant obedience of God's divine fiat and God said, and it was so. In the Enuma Elish, magic incantations are the ultimate source of power, thus making the gods subject in nature to magic. In Genesis, however, power is manifest in the commands or the fiat of God, and nature is one of his obedient subjects. Babylonian gods are identified with nature, but God in Genesis is creator of and distinct from all creation. The Genesis account systematically includes all general realms of nature. The Enuma Elish omits major aspects of creation such as vegetation, animals, the sun, and the light. In Genesis, God forms the heavens and the earth on the first 3 days. This does not take place until the 4th tablet of Enuma Elish. In Genesis, man is created from day to rule over creation. In Enuma Elish, man is created from God's blood to be slaves of the God. The first chapters of Genesis are clearly a creation epic. Enuma Elish, within its historical context, was clearly not primarily a creation story, but rather a hymn of praise to Marduk. It was in essence mythological propaganda to put Marduk at the head of the pantheon, to exalt the city of Babylon and enhance Hammurabi's power. After comparing the two accounts, it becomes clear that if one is to base a conclusion off the similarities alone, then some important differences are being ignored. In the Genesis account, Moses purposely portrays a monotheistic God who operates within the parameters of organization and peace. The Enuma Elish is polytheistic, and the gods operate within the parameters of war and violence. Furthermore, Moses seems to choose his words carefully in describing God's creation. For example, he writes that God created the greater light to rule the day and the lesser to rule the night, as opposed to using sun, Shemesh, and moon, Sin, perhaps knowing that many may misinterpret the account as God creating lesser gods. It is also important to note that Enuma Elish is a Mesopotamian myth influenced heavily by the surrounding region, which consisted of 2 rivers feeding into the Gulf, the land between Meso and the rivers Potamia, where we get the word Mesopotamia. Ancient Babylonian was located here near the Tigris and Euphrates, which are both fresh waters. These 2 rivers feed into the Persian Gulf, which is a salty water mass. Euphrates and the Tigris both carry sand and silt to the Persian Gulf, which creates a delta. This is important because the Enuma Elish begins with Apsu, god of fresh water, and Tiamat, goddess of salt water, giving birth to the other gods and the goddesses. That is, the Enuma Elish seems to be a creation story influenced by its region, like the delta being formed by the 2 rivers, so that the Enuma Elish gods formed by the mingling of Apsu and Tiamat. Genesis, on the other hand, depicts the single God doing the creating, not the other way around. Another challenging issue for the Enuma Elish has been the question as to when it was recorded. The story has been said to have been written anywhere from the 18th century to the 12th century BCE. Many believe that Genesis was recorded in the 5th century during Israel's wanderings in the wilderness. Either way, it is highly unlikely that Moses, with all of the biblical history recorded about him, would have borrowed creation history from a polytheistic civilization existing to his respective east while he lived and served the monotheistic God in the respective west. Knowing the issues of differences, the monotheistic and the polytheistic natures, the obvious influence from the Mesopotamian region, and the unsettled dating of the recording, it is safe to conclude that it is highly unlikely that Moses borrowed or was influenced by the Enuma Elish. Genesis is far different in nature than any other ancient Near Eastern creation myth, and therefore must not be considered among that fold. Alright, well, I wanted to bring this to you so you could understand this. I don't know if I completely agree that they're so different, because there are a lot of similarities here. Yes, there are differences, but when we look at the account in Genesis, I think we also have to take into account the stories that come out of the Gnostic Gospels, because there we find that there are even differences to the way Genesis is told now. We are not told that the Bible, the Old Testament, is telling the story of a fallen being, Yaldabaoth, Yahweh, or in this case, Enlil. So we have the same being who is the one who is involved with a part of creation. So I think there's enough similarities here to see that either this event that went on happened and a lot of different folks and people, transcribed it, or it's the same event that has just been repeated because this made such a profound impact. Let me show you over here another page. It says Genesis and Enuma Elish creation myth comparisons. One of the two Bible creation myths was probably derived from the much older Mesopotamian creation myth Enuma Elish. The 6 days of creation in the Genesis myth parallel the 6 generations of gods in the Enuma Elish myth. In type of God in Enuma Elish that is created, Marduk, the 6th generation god, makes man as a slave so other gods can rest. God Elohim makes man on the 6th day, and he himself rests. The Enuma Elish 6 generations of gods, and they are Tiamat and Apsu, the 1st generation. Alamhu, 2nd generation. Kishar was the 3rd. Anu, the 4th. E, the 5th. And Marduk, 6th. Now E, that's also Enki, E, Enki. And then Marduk, 6th. Okay. And it goes into describing a bit there. So, I know it's trying to say, the author there was trying to talk about how the book of Genesis is monotheistic, but I think that the author may have missed out on the words us that keep repeating, that we will, if man learns this, he will become like one of us. So there's more than one being involved. It just depends on how you're going to look at the book of Genesis. If you're going to look at Genesis and take it at face value and try to fit your meaning into the words, well, I guess you're going to get what you get. But if you look at the words and you decipher them for what they are and try not to assign meaning to them other than what they do mean, when we read something that says, God says, let us make man in our image, we don't try to decide that us and our means something other than us and our, because it designates and lets us know that there is more than one being there. Therefore, it is not a monotheistic system. It is a system polytheistic, just the same as the Enuma Elish, at least in my opinion. Anyway, I want to go back over here. I want to jump into the first tablet. Okay, the first tablet. When in the height heaven was not named, and the earth beneath it did not yet bear a name, and the primeval Apsu who begat them, and Chaos, Tiamat, the mother of them both, their waters were mingled together, and no field was formed, no marsh was seen. And when of the gods none of them had been called into being, and none bore a name, and no destinies were ordained, then were created the gods in the midst of heaven. Alamu and Lahamu were called into being. Ages increased. Then Ansar and Kisar were created, and over them long were the days. And then there came forth Anu, their son, Ansar and Anu, and the god Anu, Nidmud, when his fathers, his begetters, abounding in all wisdom, he was exceedingly strong, he had no rival. Thus were established and were the great gods. But Tiamat and Apsu were still in confusion. They were troubled and in disorder. Apsu was not diminished in might, and Tiamat roared. She smote in their deeds. Their way was evil, and Apsu, the begetter of the great gods, cried into Mumu, his minister, and said unto him, O Mumu, thou minister that rejoices my spirit, come unto Tiamat, let us go. So they went before, and before Tiamat they lay down. They counseled on a plan with regards to the gods, their sons. Apsu opened his mouth and spake, and unto Tiamat, the glistening one, he addressed the world, their way. By day I cannot rest, by night I cannot lie down in peace, but I will destroy their way. I will. Let there be lamentation, and let us lie down again in peace. When Tiamat heard these words, she raged and cried aloud. She grievously, she uttered a curse, and unto Apsu she spake, What then shall we do? Let their way be made difficult, and let us lie down again in peace. Mamu answered, and gave counsel unto Apsu, and hostile to the gods was the counsel Mamu gave. Come, their way is strong, but thou shalt destroy it. Then by day shalt thou have rest, by night thou shalt lie down in peace. Apsu hearkened unto him, and his countenance grew bright. Since he, Mamu, planned evil against the gods, his sons, he was afraid. His knees became weak. They gave way beneath him because of the evil which their firstborn had planned. There they altered lamentation, they sat in sorrow. Then E, who knoweth all that is, went up and beheld their muttering. There's 30 missing lines. It goes on to say, he spake, he hath conquered, and he weepeth and sitteth in tribulation. Of fear, we shall not lie down in peace. Apsu is laid waste, and Mamu, who were taken captive in, thou didst, let us lie down in peace. They will smite, let us lie down in peace. Thou shalt take vengeance for them. Unto the tempest shall thou. And Tiamat hearkened unto the world of the bright God, and said, thou shalt entrust, let us wage war, the gods in the midst of, for the God did she create. They banded themselves together, and at the side of Tiamat they advanced. They were furious, they devised mischief, without resting day and night. They prepared for battle, fuming and raging, they joined their forces and made war. Umar Hubar Tumat, who formed all things, made in addition weapons invincible. She spawned monster serpents, sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. With poison instead of blood she filled their bodies. Fierce monster vipers she clothed with terror. With splendor she decked them, she made them of lofty stature. Whoever beheld them, terror overcame him. Their bodies reared up, and none could withstand their attack. She set up vipers and dragons, and the monsters Lamu, and hurricanes and raging hounds, and scorpion men, and mighty tempests, and fishmen and rams. They bore cruel weapons, without fear of the fight. Her commands were mighty, none could resist her. After this fashion, huge of stature, she made 11 kinds of monsters among the gods who were her sons, inasmuch as she had given her support. She exalted Kingu. In their midst she raised him to power, to march before the forces, to lead the host, to give the battle signal, to advance to the attack, to direct the battle, to control the fight. Unto him she entrusted. In costly raiment she made him sit, saying, I have uttered thy spell. In thy assembly of the gods I have raised thee to power. The dominion over the gods have I entrusted unto him. Be thou exalted, my chosen spouse. May they magnify the name all of them, the Anunnaki. She gave him the tablets of destiny. On his breast she laid them, saying, thy command shall not be withheld without avail, and the word of thy mouth shall be established. Now Kingu, thus established, having received the power of Anu, decreed the fate among the gods, his sons, saying, let the opening of your mouth quench the fire god. Whoso is exalted in the battle, let him display his might. All right, that is the first tablet. There are 6 more plus the epilogue. I'm going to leave the link for you to be able to read on. It's interesting, though, to see that we have these stories that we follow, and without looking into the origin or the history of these stories, we don't realize that they are connected to others. But it's these connections that are the important part, because when we start to connect all the pieces together to see how this story connects to this story and this story connects to this, it's like finding a solution to a problem, helping us to evolve, because all of these things are connected, and we are possibly all telling the same stories, just from a different perspective. So if we could come together to understand that we're telling the same stories, maybe we might find a way out of this state of confusion or forgetfulness that we all have seemed to be dealing with. All right? All right. So here's an article. It's called Meditation Grows Bigger Brains by Mark Wheeler. Push-ups, crunches, gym, personal trainers. People have many strategies for building bigger muscles and stronger bones. But what can you do to build a bigger brain? Meditate. That's the finding from a group of researchers at UCLA who used high-resolution magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, to scan the brains of people who meditate. In a study published in the journal Neural Image and currently available online by subscription, the researchers report that certain regions of the brain of long-term meditators were larger than in a similar control group. Specifically, meditators showed a significantly larger volumes of the hippocampus and areas within the orbital frontal cortex, the thalamus, and the inferior temporal gyrus, all regions known for regulating emotions. We know that people who consistently meditate have a singular ability to cultivate positive emotions, retain emotional stability, and engage in mindful behavior, says Eileen Luders, lead author and postdoctoral research fellow at the UCLA Laboratory of Neuroimaging. The observed differences in brain anatomy might give us a clue to why mediators have these exceptional abilities. Research has confirmed the beneficial aspects of meditation. In addition to having better focus and control over their emotions, many people who meditate regularly have reduced levels of stress and bolstered immune systems. But less is known about the link between the meditation and the brain structure. In the study, Luders and her colleagues examined 44 people, 22 control subjects, and 22 had practiced various forms of meditation, including Zazen, Samatha, and Vipassana, among others. The amount of time they had practiced ranged from 5 to 46 years, with an average of 24 years. More than half of the meditators said that the deep concentration was an essential part of their practice, and most meditated between 10 and 90 minutes every day. The researchers used a high-resolution, three-dimensional form of MRI and two different approaches to measure differences in the brain structure. One approach automatically divides the brain into several regions of interest, allowing researchers to compare the size of certain brain structures. The other segments of the brain into different tissue types, allowing researchers to compare the amount of gray matter within specific regions of the brains. The researchers found significantly larger cerebral measurements in meditators compared with controls, including larger volumes of the right hippocampus and increased gray matter in the right orbital frontal cortex, the right thalamus, and the left inferior temporal lobe. There were no regions where controls had significantly larger volumes or more gray matter than meditators. But these areas of the brain are closely linked to emotion, Luders said. They might be neural underpinnings that give meditators the outstanding ability to regulate their emotions and allow for well-adjusted responses to whatever life throws their way. What's not known, she said, and will require further study, are what the specific correlates are on the microscopic level. That is, when it's an increased number of neurons, the larger size of the neurons of a particular wiring pattern meditators may develop than other people's don't. Because this was not a longitudinal study which would have tracked meditators from the time they began meditating onwards, it's possible that the meditators already had more regional gray matter and volume of specific areas that may have attracted them to meditation in the first place, Luders said. However, she also noted that the previous numerous studies have pointed to the brain's remarkable plasticity and how environmental enrichment has been shown to change brain structure. All right, so very good. So meditation is good for the brain, but we know that because when we practice meditation, it makes us calmer, does a lot of good things that we know about. And that brings us to a message for today. Today's message comes from Melchizedek. Here we go.
Melchizedek's weekly message, March 29, 2015. Received by Julie Miller. When correctly understood and openly perceived, consciousness Dear Ones is one of the main hidden wonders of life. We are not speaking of the consciousness of something, but of consciousness itself. If you look under all your mundane understandings, beneath your senses, thoughts, feelings and emotions, what you will discover is a knowing stillness, what many consider to be genuine thought before any specific content arrived. In order to sample this, dear ones, all you need to do is sit with closed eyes in a place that is quiet. All you do is relax and nothing else but observe. Just continue in a relaxed state of awareness, not trying or attempting to stop or to control your thoughts. You are not trying to hear any particular sound, nor are you being aware of your body. After some time has lapsed, your thoughts will slow down and quiet to their own harmony. You may notice the gaps between thoughts stretching, giving more mental silence, more stillness. That still, dear ones, settle into it, taste the consciousness there and rest in it. The more acquainted you become with your consciousness, the more familiar you are with its flavor, and the more you want to enter that mental stillness, the tranquil realm that is underneath your thoughts that can be accessed even while performing your normal activities. Just as out-of-the-way clouds pass through a clear blue sky, they don't obscure the view, they are just passing by. Your thoughts and other observations also don't obscure consciousness from you, simply because you live in consciousness. When you are consciousness, there no longer exists a burden to defend your self-centered ego. When you are in pure, genuine consciousness, you are allowing yourself to just be, being your true, natural, and authentic self. There is no need for pretense, no mask, no walls, no false images or illusions to exhibit. What you bring yourselves, dear ones, is a gift of equanimity, full presence and complete awareness, wide openness and liberation. You bring yourself relief. But even in this quiet space, you still have an answer to reach that requires your complete honesty and truthfulness. Who am I? Could I be this consciousness? Don't shy from the answers, open yourself up to them and embrace the yes. What other answer would you be looking for? Consciousness is infinite, it bears no boundaries, and when you come to it, it is never changing, always the same, timeless, no beginning and no end. When we speak of consciousness that way, sounds like we are speaking of God. Which then tells you, dear ones, that consciousness does have the correct qualities to be considered the ultimate. And even though many spiritual teachers, sages, gurus, etc. will convincingly tell reaching consciousness is the ultimate goal, they don't often share that there is something more, something your intuitive self tells you, something even deeper than this knowing stillness. You get a hint at what this is in the changeless, formless nature of consciousness, and another in the fact that once you get a taste for pure consciousness, you are able to be aware of it. It is a self-reflexive awareness. And this awareness, dear ones, will lead you towards recognizing that consciousness is not who, but is described as a what. You know for a fact you are not a what, but a who. You are the one that chooses, responds, observes and manages all that you are. Consciousness is in subtle sense static, while God is considered to be ultimate, making him also vibrant. It is obvious, dear ones, that you are not static, but vibrant. If you are able to be fully aware of consciousness, and not just consciousness being aware of itself, but like a giant movie screen where all you have observed so far in life appears. It is the very screen of your mind. But you, dear ones, are the audience, observing and watching the images play. You are not the images, you are not even the screen. You, dear ones, are the one doing the watching. You are the one being aware while you are not the awareness. We understand this week's message comes across a little abstract, but it is essential to comprehend, dear ones, that mental stillness is crucial and touchable, crucial for your understanding of yourself and of all life, touchable in the authenticity of your real I. Yet, in order for you to reach this discrepancy, you need to first have acquired a taste for the flavor of consciousness and to reside within it. Yes, dear ones, you can discover yourself there and come to the conclusion that indeed you are not your consciousness, you are more. The next time you meditate and enter the silence within you, after you allowed all mental clutter to drift away, simply rest in your consciousness and ask that important question: am I that? I am Melchizedek. Through Julie Miller.
All right, very good. Nice message from Melchizedek. All right, today we are on page 56 of The Warrior of the Light. There we go. Here's today's message. To engage in any activity, you need to know what you can expect, how to achieve your objective, and whether you or not you're capable of carrying out the proposed task. Only a person who's suitably equipped feels no desire for the results of the conquest and yet remains absorbed in the struggle can truly say that he or she has renounced the fruits of victory. One can renounce the fruit, but that renunciation does not signal indifference to the results. The warrior of light listens with respect to Gandhi's strategy, and he remains unconvinced by those who, incapable of achieving any result at all, preach renunciation. And that brings us to our meditation for today. Let's go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath and exhale. Take another deep breath. Feel the air moving through your body, through all of your cells. Exhale. And just feel this exchange of energy between you and the outside of you. Inhale, bring that air and energy in. Let it move through your body. Feel it moving through each and every cell in your body. Feel it moving through your chest, out to your shoulders, your arms, up to your head, your face, down into your stomach, hips, legs, down to your ankles, your feet. Feel your whole body reverberating and vibrating with this energy, this breath. And just know that this breath is a breath that continues on and on and on. And we have lived with this breath of life from the moment we were born. And we'll continue to be alive on this planet until the moment that breath of life leaves us. So we move through life thinking about the precious gifts we have that keep us alive. We realize that sometimes we take for granted these things. But when we stop to think about how it all works, we realize how truly blessed we are. So let's take this moment just to give thanks to our body for working continuously from the time we've been born. Give thanks to our heart for continuously pumping the blood through our body. Give thanks to all of the organs for processing the energy that moves through us. Give thanks to the arms and the legs and the aspects of ourselves that move us around. Give thanks to who we are. And know that who we are at this moment, regardless of our physical condition, we are where we are supposed to be. And the opportunities that we have are all the same, for we all live in the same universe of possibilities. So as we go into the world today, let's just look at the world through the eyes of gratitude. Grateful for all that we have. Grateful for all that we know. And let's just experience the world from this perspective. So let the subconscious mind continue on the journey, looking at the eyes, the world through the eyes of gratitude. And let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale. And open your eyes. That is it, my friends. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for being here yet again. It's always a pleasure to be able to do the shows and be able just to share and then to get your emails and your comments. I really like that. So thank you very much. Y'all have an awesome day. Love you. Keep loving each other. And I'll be back tomorrow. Peace. I'm out of here.